In this week's Parsha, the Jewish people get the first mitzvah that they received as a nation. Even though they were going to get the entire Torah at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, Hashem felt it necessary to start giving them mitzvos here. And the very first mitzvah is the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, that the Jewish people have a mitzvah to sanctify the new moon. This is a bit troubling. If Hashem wanted to give them one mitzvah, why did he start with the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, of sanctifying the new moon? This doesn't seem to be something that's integral to our lives as much as other mitzvos. It doesn't seem to be something that is so important that we needed to get it before the rest of the Torah. What is so special about this mitzvah, and what is the lesson that Hashem is giving to us by giving this mitzvah first? So Chazal tell us, our rabbis tell us, that the Jewish people are compared to the moon. Why are the Jewish people compared to the moon? Because just like the moon gets bigger and smaller every month, so too the Jewish people, they get bigger and they get smaller. As Jewish people, we have our ups and we have our downs. And therefore, perhaps the lesson that Hashem was giving to them by giving them this mitzvah was that the Jewish people had to realize throughout your history, starting here in Mitzrayim, you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. Even though they were on the cusp of leaving Mitzrayim, of becoming a nation, of getting the Torah, even so, they were going to still have their downs, they were going to have their ups. And this is something that they needed to keep in mind throughout their history. We tend to think that when something is going wrong, that when we have a down, when we're struggling with something, it's an imperfection in the world. It's a mistake, so to speak, in God's plan, or in our plan for our lives. But the Torah is telling us that that's not true. Hashem set up a system where you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. Some downs in our lives are not avoidable. And our job is not to pretend they didn't happen. Our job is not always to avoid them, because sometimes they are unavoidable. Our job is to make the most of them. Moshe Chaim Lazato, the Ramchal, in his classic work Mesilas Yesharim, says that every opportunity in every situation that we're in is an opportunity for growth. Every opportunity that we're in is a new chance to serve Hashem in a different way, and a test. How are we going to serve Hashem? When a person is rich, are they going to use their money correctly? When a person is poor, are they going to question Hashem? When a person is healthy, what are they going to accomplish? And when a person is sick, how are they going to use that time to be productive as well? There's a very famous story told about Moshe Soloveitchik, the head of the Soloveitchik dynasty. And Moshe Soloveitchik was a very rich businessman in Europe. And at one point, his business started turning sour and he started losing all his money. He was someone who used his money correctly. He used his money to give tzedakah. He used his money to do acts of kindness. Yet he lost all his money. And it bothered him, not for the sake of the money, but he said, what is Hashem doing to me? Why is Hashem punishing me by taking away all the money? And he actually convened a Beis Din, he convened a court to help him try to figure out what he had done wrong that he lost all his money. And they weren't able to figure it out. Years later, he finally figured it out. Because when he lost all his money, when he was no longer busy with his business, he now had more time to study Torah. And he went from being the rich businessman Moshe Soloveitchik to being the Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, who would go on to have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren until today, who are of the great Torah leaders of that generation and all the generations until today. He was put in a situation that was a difficult situation, but it wasn't as a punishment. It was because this situation at this point was an opportunity for growth. And he, Baruch Hashem for all of us, because we all benefit from the Torah of him and his children and grandchildren and all his descendants, he took advantage of that opportunity and he started a rabbinic dynasty. In our lives as well, we're going to have our ups, we're going to have our downs. And it's so important for us to remember that. So important that Hashem felt it necessary to give us the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, of sanctifying the new moon, of realizing that we're like the new moon, that we have our ups and downs in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, even before we got the rest of the Torah. This is something that is integral for us to realize as we go on in our lives, trying to be the best Ovdei Hashem, trying to be the best servants of Hashem that we could be. The way we're going to strive in our divine service is not to only try to avoid these situations, but when we're in difficult situations, to try to make the most of them and to try to use every opportunity that we have to serve Hashem. Have a great Shabbos.